Welcome to the Humane Investigations Overview presentation with DuPage County Animal Services. The goals for this presentation are to understand humane investigations, allegations of abuse and neglect against animals, and the role of law enforcement officers. We will first cover the importance of investigating crimes against animals. Next, we will detail what the law requires for pet guardians, then discuss different types of criminal acts, what to look for as an investigating officer, and resources available for law enforcement. Under the law, domestic animals are afforded protection from cruel treatment. Animals suffering from pain, fear, and neglect are more likely to act aggressively and potentially injure a person. It is vital to dig deeper into animal crimes because studies show people who abuse animals are 5 times more likely to commit violent crimes against other people. Animal abuse is often the first outwardly visible sign an individual or a family is in trouble. Identifying cases of animal abuse or neglect and bringing these cases forward in the criminal justice system may provide relief of both animal and human suffering and bring both punitive and healing interventions to those involved. Because of increasing awareness of this link between intentional harm to animals and violence to people, more states are mandating that veterinarians report suspicions of animal cruelty. In Illinois, veterinarians and animal control officers are mandated reporters. It may also be easier to learn what is happening within a family by investigating suspected abuse or harm against pets. Animals are often used as a tool of control by abusers. Something like, "Do what I say or I'll hurt your cat." Any animal abuse witnessed by children can also be grounds for additional penalties and court-ordered treatments. Children or victims of domestic violence may be more open to discussing injuries inflicted on their beloved pets than against themselves. By showing concern for the well-being of the animals, investigating officers can build trust and cooperation with the people involved. There are 3 main acts governing domestic, non-agricultural animals in the state of Illinois. The Humane Care for Animals Act regulates the general treatment of animals, including owner responsibilities. The Animal Control Act gives authority to organizations like DCAS for regulating rabies within the community, and the Animal Welfare Act oversees businesses such as animal rescues, shelters, pet stores, and breeders. Additionally, the prohibition against dogfighting is under the Criminal Code, Section 48-1. County and municipality ordinances can vary from the state laws, either putting stricter restrictions or allowing items prohibited in the state law. The DuPage County Code of Ordinances is applicable to residents living in unincorporated areas of DuPage County. For example, the DuPage County ordinances were recently updated to impose a time limit for how long a dog can be tethered unsupervised, which is not present in the Illinois laws and would not apply to municipalities who do not have these restrictions. Your municipality may have an ordinance that differs from the state law, and it is important to be familiar with the differences. If your ordinances do not cover a particular topic, then the state law will be your guideline. The Humane Care for Animals Act, the DuPage County Code of Ordinances, and many municipality ordinances direct how domestic animals should be treated. They must be provided sufficient wholesome food and water, proper shelter and protection from the weather, veterinary care when needed to prevent suffering, and humane care and treatment. For dogs, proper shelter and protection from the weather is defined as a building, moisture-proof, with a dry floor and adequate and clean bedding material. As I mentioned previously, local ordinances can define stricter parameters than state laws. While the state law defines tethers to be at least 10 feet long, in DuPage County, we revised our ordinances to better align with best practices and now require a tether of at least 12 feet. We also require owners to be present on the property if the dog is to be tethered for more than 30 minutes. You can see in this picture the dog has sufficient food, water, and adequate shelter. However, this owner lives in unincorporated DuPage and would leave his dog tethered while he was away at work. This is in violation of our ordinances, and the animal control officers worked with the owner to plan an alternate method of housing the dog while he was away from home. There are many differences between animal neglect and animal cruelty as defined by the law. Neglect refers to when an owner is not providing those things required by law for the care of their animals. Neglect may be the result of ignorance rather than harmful intent. It is important to address cases of neglect because they will most likely not clear up on their own. If this is the first time you're addressing concerns for this owner, provide educational materials. They may not realize the swollen belly on a puppy is not because the puppy's fat, but a symptom of intestinal worms requiring medical treatment. Or that their dog's nails need to be trimmed to avoid complications when they grow too long, as you see in the photo. Lay out a plan for the problems to be addressed and then follow up to make sure the owners complied. If a person is convicted of neglect, subsequent offenses can be charged as felonies. Or if you have someone who fails to comply and make changes, then it may be appropriate to charge the owners with cruelty. The omission of performing a duty can be seen as an intentional act. So if, for example, you have a report of a thin animal with an insufficient diet, you've discussed with the owners about providing enough food, and when you follow up, they are still feeding inadequate amounts. This could be considered starvation, which can be charged under the cruelty statutes. Aggravated cruelty encompasses incidents where the animal has suffered severe injury or death and the actions were committed with the intent to cause harm. In addition to blood sports such as dog or cockfighting, people may intentionally cause harm to animals to share footage on social media. Acts like this may be appropriate to charge as torture. Hoarding cases most often stem from a mental disorder that causes the person to live or act in ways that a healthy person would find unbearable. The end goal should be to get the person the help they need while ensuring the animals involved are taken care of. Studies show that simply removing the animals without any supportive services for the hoarding individual is only a temporary fix. The person will more than likely continue to acquire animals and soon find themselves in trouble again. Hoarding investigations may be initiated by different departments who must work together to help the persons involved. Threatening punitive consequences can make the situation worse, and it may prevent advocates for the people, such as family members or friends, from coming forward to seek assistance. Understanding how the situation arose will be crucial for helping the person. Hoarding may arise from different situations, such as the kindly rescuer whom the neighbors drop cats at their door to find good homes. That person may run out of rehoming options and keep the animals to save them. Intact animals who breed can quickly overwhelm a caregiver who may then be too embarrassed to seek help or is now unable to afford spay and neuter surgeries for all the animals. In one case investigated by DCAS, pictured here, 2 rabbits became 37 rabbits in under 8 months. In rare instances, there are exploiter hoarders who do not have emotional bonds to the animals in their care and are indifferent to their suffering. However, in most cases, the people involved do care about the welfare of the animals and are doing what they think is best to help them. Helping the person understand that they and the animals they care for deserve a better living situation can help make finding solutions easier. If an animal is in imminent danger, an officer may take that animal into custody to save its life. But it is important to remember that animals are seen as property under the law, and any animal seizure must be done with the proper documentation. You wouldn't remove a car from someone's garage without the proper paperwork. Under the law, an animal should be documented in a similar way. Make sure you document the scene and the reason for the seizure. If the animal has insufficient housing and extreme weather is expected, photograph the environment and note the weather forecast. In that situation, you can require the owners to bring the animal inside the house immediately. If they refuse to comply, then seizure of the animal is justified, but documentation is still required. If you need to seize an animal, you'll need to have a place for the animal to go where they can get an assessment by a veterinarian. Deceased animals may also be seized and held as evidence. Make sure to document the conditions you found the animal in. DCAS has a large freezer available for law enforcement to use for this purpose free of charge until the animal can be transported to an appropriate facility for examination. Seized animals need to be evaluated by a veterinarian as soon as possible. Depending on the circumstances of the case, you may also need to find a place to hold the animal. If the animal will remain on the property, a care plan needs to be put in place, and officers on the case will need to follow up that proper care is being provided. For example, the barn housing horses is adequate, but the owner failed to provide proper nutrition. Under the guidance of a veterinarian, officers may work with a rescue organization for feeding and cleaning while the case is being processed. The horses will remain on the property, but different caregivers will ensure the horses receive everything they need. If the owners wish to reclaim the animal, be clear on the process for that. In some cases, a judge can order the owners to pay care costs while the investigation is open, or require the owners to pay a fine in order to reclaim their animals. Owners may agree to surrender the animal to avoid these additional costs, or law enforcement may request a judge to grant forfeiture of the animal so the animals may be placed into caring homes. You may also be able to request the owners follow up with a veterinarian as part of the reclaim process. This is why it is important to have a vet examine the animal at the time of seizure to be able to sufficiently document a need for follow-up care and any requests made to an owner to do so. It is important to understand if the persons accused are in fact the owners of the animal. Checking medical paperwork and microchip registrations can help determine the animal's legal owner. If an owner refuses to surrender their animal, the pet may be kept in an appropriate facility until a conclusion is reached. Animal hospitals, kenneling facilities, or DCAS can all provide appropriate care for animals, but will need to charge fees to cover the care costs. Law enforcement can seek restitution through the state attorney's office or apply for grants to offset these costs. It is important to know what your options are for holding and treating animals seized during an investigation. In most cases, you won't know what you need until you're in the middle of it. But there are some general partnerships to have ready in case you ever need them. If your stray holding facility does not have medical staff available 24/7, you will want to consider an emergency animal hospital that can assess seized animals as soon as possible. This is true for stray animals as well. If you pick up an injured stray animal, best practice is to transport the animal to an emergency vet hospital rather than leaving it in a kennel overnight at a stray holding facility where no one is available to examine the animal right away. Ask the veterinarian clinic you use if they have exotic veterinarians on site or if they have recommendations. Most veterinarians are comfortable assessing cats and dogs, but reptiles, birds, large, or other small mammals will need to be seen by an exotic veterinarian. Just like your average primary doctor should not be performing autopsies, most veterinarians are not trained in forensic medicine and are unable to do necropsies, post-mortem examinations on an animal. The University of Illinois does provide these services, and DCIS is able to refer law enforcement to forensic veterinarians. Local rescues may be able to help house and care for exotic or large animals. The Department of Agriculture has listings of all licensed rescues in the state on their website. Consider what else your case needs. For example, if you are investigating a case where the defendant used cruel methods for training purposes, you may want to seek out professional trainers to refute these methods and provide insight into animal behavior. Providing context to the story can be key to getting positive results in a humane investigation. Being able to provide objective data on the animal's environment, such as temperature and dimensions of living spaces, can give the courts and juries a better appreciation for what is allowable in the law and what isn't. For cases where owner ignorance is to blame, handouts explaining their responsibilities can go a long way in improving the animal's conditions. Contact DCIS for templates of handouts your department can use. Photographs can be a crucial part of a humane investigation, but make sure to get the whole picture. Don't intentionally take photos that make the situation look better or worse than it really is. For example, there's a rundown doghouse in the yard, but the dog also has access to the garage via a doggy door. Only taking photos of the doghouse negates the shelter provided in the garage and does not accurately portray the dog's situation. For cases regarding neglect or abuse, always take photos of the animals from multiple angles to provide the most complete picture. Digging deeper into the story is a vital step many investigators neglect when pressed for time, but overlooking this aspect of the investigation can have dire consequences if the situation worsens. If you have a complainant, talk to them in detail. Ask for specifics and any documentation they can provide. For example, if an animal is living on an abandoned property, neighboring houses may have security cameras that can document when people are physically at the property. Get written statements and ask if they are willing to testify in court to what they observed. In some instances, understanding how a situation progressed to this point can be key in finding a solution. Many hoarders are embarrassed by what has happened and didn't know where to turn. On the other hand, it is important to follow up on the details provided by the owner to make sure you understand the full story. One of the most effective ways to get to the truth is appropriate questions and follow through with an investigation. Let's go over some common scenarios you may encounter and how to discover what is going on. In the first scenario, you're responding to reports of a thin dog. This is concerning because the animal may need medical treatment or is being neglected. You may hear some common explanations or excuses from the owner, including, "Oh, I guess we take him on too many walks. He must be getting too much exercise." Or, "He's always been a thin dog." Or, "You should have seen him when we got him. He's put on a lot of weight since then." Or even, "We've had him to the vets and he's being treated." It is important to dig deeper into these explanations. Ignoring the problem or taking people at their word can put the animal at risk for further suffering and will reflect very poorly on your department. Some good follow-up questions to ask include, where and when did you get the animal? If the person tells you where they got the animal, consider checking with that person or place as to the condition of the animal when it was given to this person. Who is your veterinarian? When did you last have the animal examined? If they give you the name of a veterinarian, consider checking with the veterinarian to see when the animal was last seen and its condition at that time. When do you plan to have him examined? Make sure the person gives you a reasonable time frame. within the next few days. Check with the veterinarian to ensure the animal was seen and to determine the veterinarian's opinion of the animal. The animal may be suffering from a condition that prevents it from eating, such as dental issues that need to be addressed. How much food do you give the animal every day? When they respond with the amount of food they give the animal, consider discussing with them that given the condition of the animal, that amount of food does not appear to be adequate. Ask to see the food and consult the feeding suggestions on the bag. In this next scenario, neighbors are complaining about a dog outside with no or inadequate shelter. Owners may try to downplay how long the dog is outside at a time, but this is concerning because the animal may be subjected to extreme weather. Common owner explanations or excuses include, "Oh, so-and-so must have forgotten to let him back in," or "We always bring him in when it's really cold," or "We just put him outside for some air," or "He always comes in at night," or even "The animal really likes the cold or the heat." Again, dig deeper into these explanations. Anytime you're in the area over the next few days, drive by the location to see if the animal is outside. Discuss the accommodations legally required to house animals outside. Talk to the neighbors. If they have footage of the animal in the yard at different times, request copies of it. If weather conditions have the potential to be harmful, extreme heat or cold, you can order them to bring the animal inside until appropriate housing is available. If they refuse, as we discussed earlier, it may be appropriate to seize the animal. Just make sure all the proper documentation is completed. In this scenario, a dog is bloodied or hurt and you suspect the owner hit him. While accidents do happen, the dog may have severe injuries that require medical attention, or it may be living in a dangerous environment. Common owner explanations or excuses you may hear include, "A neighbor dog attacked," or "He fell down the stairs," or "He was hit by a car," or "Something accidentally fell on him." To dig deeper, ask for more details, paying attention to inconsistencies. Tell the owner he must get medical attention for the dog immediately. Call the veterinarian later to get a report. If the owner refuses to go to the veterinarian and you fear the dog has life-threatening injuries, you can seize the dog so it receives appropriate medical treatment. Interview the neighbors to see if they saw the owner hurting the dog. If so, obtain statements from them and any footage available. If the owner claimed the dog was attacked by another dog or hit by a car, camera footage showing the street at the appropriate time can support or refute these statements. In this last scenario, neighbors are calling to report a dog who has repeatedly been at large in the neighborhood showing aggressive behaviors. Any animal can bite, but animals who are scared, upset, or injured are more likely to cause harm. Common owner explanations or excuses you may hear include, "Someone must have let the gate open," or "He must have broken his harness," or "This never happens, he never gets out," or "He's super friendly, he wouldn't hurt anyone." Dig deeper by trying to understand how the dog is getting loose. If someone is leaving a door open, placing a baby gate in between rooms may keep the dog inside the home. Worn harnesses, collars, and leashes should be replaced. If the dog tends to chew through these items, equipment made of metal can prevent that. Talk to the neighbors about how often the dogs are loose. Depending on your municipality's ordinances, after a certain number of documented incidents, the family may be required to use additional measures to contain their animal. If the dog has had a biting incident in the past, talk to the family about the benefits of muzzle training to keep everyone safe. Animals who respond to their owners may react completely different around strangers or in a high-stress situation. In a worst-case scenario, an animal who continuously gets at large and is displaying aggressive behaviors may injure or kill other animals or a person. We want to emphasize the potential dangers to the owner to prevent the animal from becoming at large in the future. I know we covered a lot of information in this course, but our purpose was just to provide an overview of humane investigations. This is a complicated matter with many variables, way more than can be taught in 30 minutes. There are additional resources available to law enforcement officials providing in-depth information on these topics. I encourage you to seek further educational opportunities. We are always happy to answer questions about procedures or to help our law enforcement partners. During regular business hours, please contact the DuPage County Animal Services main office at 630-407-2800 or email us at animalservices@dupagecounty.gov. If you are facing an immediate public safety threat after business hours, our animal control officers can be reached through the Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center. Ask dispatch to connect you with the on-call ACO. For legal and prosecuting questions, contact Alyssa Rabelinski, an Assistant State's Attorney, for more information. We hope you found this training helpful and informative. Remember, crimes against animals are often signs of ongoing criminal activity within a home and should not be ignored. Please feel free to reach out to our office with any questions or check our website for other learning opportunities. Thank you for participating in the Humane Investigations Overview presentation.